everyone. I am so excited to be back. Welcome back to Be Better with Suzan. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Suzan Nguyen, and I'm your host. Aside from that fun fact, I am a certified happiness coach. I'm an author of One Arm But Not Unarmed. Cool title, right? And also, I'm a speaker. And I'm so excited to be at Now Media. I love that I'm able to provide a platform to really highlight some amazing people, some inspirational stories. And today, I'm excited to have Cam Ayala in studio with me. Woo! Cam, say hi, bud.
Hello. How are you? Certified happiness coach. That's a pretty cool title.
It is cool. And it's very intriguing to me in the beginning. I knew that I was in such a dark place, but I also realized that creating joy was from within.
Yes.
So I needed to go through a lot of material, a lot of content, and to really recreate that joy from within after losing my arm.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. It was difficult. But when I was able to get certified, I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to be happy from now on.
That's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, it's very cool. I love studying about positive psychology. And enough about me. So tell us about you.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for having me, Suzan. I'm glad that we're finally here chatting face-to-face, just having face-to-face conversations in general. I think that's one thing a lot of people miss now more than ever with all the social distancing and all that's surrounding this world, and human interaction is so powerful. So thank you once again for having me.
Absolutely.
So to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Cam, as you already know, and I'm 31 years old, and I am a Houston, Texas native, born and raised.
Yay.
And I just moved back to Houston about 7 months ago. And one title that I hold with the most pride is I'm a lymphedema patient. And we'll go into that a little bit more later on, but being back here in Houston and now in the field of lymphedema, so I am a lymphedema compression therapy consultant. So essentially I get to go around all the different hospitals around the city. I get to collaborate with surgeons, with physicians, nurses, and lymphedema therapists. And my favorite part is patients. I get to work with patients just like me and be a part of this community and really just take something that was very shameful in my world, growing up with lymphedema, and now making it a positive. So absolutely. I'm sure a happiness coach like you can appreciate that.
Absolutely. I love your story.
Yeah.
I do. Tell us more about you.
Okay, great. So what I really want to start out with was just how lymphedema became a part of my life. So when I was 11 years old, playing YMCA basketball like most kids do at that age, I started having really bad back pain, and to the point where my parents said, we need to take you to a doctor, as most parents would, right? Okay. And when I was there at the doctor, they actually noticed that my right leg was about 1.5 inches shorter than my left. Because around 11, that's when we start going through puberty, those first growth spurts, and I'm 6'4", so I've always been a taller one in my grade. So I figured it was just, the left one is just a little bit faster than the right one. It'll catch up. But the scary part is when the orthopedic doctor was doing some x-rays, he noticed some unknown spots on my bone that he thought was cancerous. So anytime, I don't care how old you are, you could be 11 like I was, or you could be 51, 61, 81, when you hear the C word, cancer, your mind can kind of spiral out of control, right? You start thinking of the inevitability of death and maybe chemotherapy and all the other trials and tribulations that can come with a cancer diagnosis. So they did a emergency surgery about a week later after doing those x-rays to basically biopsy the bone and make sure that it wasn't cancer. Fortunately, it came back benign. It wasn't cancerous, but however, a result of getting that surgery on my right knee, it turned into really bad chronic swelling, which is lymphedema. So I won't go into the whole minutia of lymphedema, but just high level, most listeners or viewers who have never heard of lymphedema, I always use the example of if you've ever rolled or sprained your ankle, just walking around or playing sports, when your ankle swells up really bad, that fluid that accumulates, that's your lymphatic fluid. Okay. So picture having a chronic swollen ankle for the rest of your life, but with your whole leg or your whole arm, because right now, as it currently stands, there is no cure for lymphedema. So you basically just have to manage the symptoms, right, through compression, through seeing therapists, compression therapists, and using equipment like the one that I represent now. So when you're told that you have a chronic disease that there's no cure for, you can either let that disease control you or you control the disease. So really the silver lining for me of being diagnosed with a chronic incurable disease at age 11 was I had a crash course in compliance and basically work ethic. And I never really wanted pity or sympathy. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want the coaches in the sports that I played to give me special treatment or special accommodations. I just wanted to be like everybody else. And I think any kid, or really most people in general, regardless of age, they want to be seen as normal. They don't want to embrace something that's different about them. So that's really been my lymphedema journey before the year 2019, which I know we'll go more into that, which is kind of how I've become this figure for the lymphedema community and how it's really inspired what I'm doing now.
I love it, and I can't wait to hear more. And you're right, after the loss of my arm, going back out in public, and I was ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, oh my goodness, just full of emotions. And people were giving me the pity and all the sympathy, and I didn't want any of that.
Yep.
I just wanted them to try to treat me normal, but I also understand from their perspective, this is new for them,
Yep.
right? I want to tread lightly. What do I say? And these faces, like, I get that all the time from people like, don't give me that face,
Right.
I'm in public and they're like, oh, and I dislike that. So I get it. We're in that situation. We're making the best of it, and we don't want any pity from anyone. And I love what you said earlier as well. And, that's from such a young age, 11. You were so resilient. But I feel like when we're in a certain situation, we must not let it control us, right?
Absolutely.
None of that defines who we are, who I am, who you are. Right. So I love that. Tell me more, buddy.
Yeah, so it actually brings back an old quote that one of my high school basketball coaches told me. He said, Cam, in basketball, but also in life, there's only two things that you have control over, which is your attitude and your effort. And I really let that sink in because I knew that I couldn't control other people's attitudes towards me. I couldn't control their perceptions of me. I can only control how I felt about myself and the effort that I put in every day, whether it was in the sport of basketball or now in my professional career, friendships, relationships, being, a son, a brother, right? A friend.
Yeah.
So that just really has resonated with me. And I know something that you and I both really have in common is this whole notion of taking something tragic and turning it into a triumph. Because I think what a lot of people, what happens is when they experience some sort of tragic event, they have different ways of coping and processing it. Sometimes it's shame, sometimes it's guilt, sometimes it's isolation, pushing loved ones away. Whereas there's people like you and I who have had all those feelings. Obviously, we're human beings, but when you can harness the good, the happiness as you're credentialed and a coach for, that's when you really start to see just your overall quality of life improve. And you have this aura about you that glows and it attracts people, right? I won't go into the law of attraction, but I mean, there really is something to say when you have this open smile and this warmness to you, and all of that, it takes work. It doesn't just happen overnight. And you and I were talking earlier, I still have moments of, self-doubt and where I throw my own pity parties. And a friend once told me a pity party is a party that you can throw, but no one wants to be invited to, let alone go to. So that's just one thing that I do struggle with from time to time, to be honest. But I think there's other things to really be thankful for, especially with all that's going on now with coronavirus. People who are furloughed or losing their jobs or losing their lives more drastically. This is a time for us to really count our blessings and, again, focus on the things we can control, which, again, is our attitude and our effort and how we are kind to one another.
I absolutely love that. And you're right, we're human. But yeah, I still have my days when it's really tough, when I just don't want to get out of bed. I'm just going through all of these negative emotions, but my husband will not allow me to feel sorry for myself for a long time. He's like, heck no, you better get your ass up, right? I mean, you've gone way too far to be that way, right? And I get it. I mean, I feel like what you said earlier as well, your vibe attracts your tribe. And it took such a long time for me to be at a better place, but I was self-medicating. I ended up in jail with an assault case because I was so angry inside and I was lashing out at people. I mean, I had so many dark moments during that tragic event, but I eventually found the light And I was looking at it at a different perspective, right? Now I'm looking at the good that came out of that situation. And you're right, it is so difficult to finally be at a place where we can actually see the good in something. Right. But when you're there, oh man, it feels so good. And then you're able to start helping others heal, and you're able to share your story. And every time I share my story, I'm continuously healing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I love being able to provide this platform to share inspirational stories, and I love yours. I love that we became friends. We're here now. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being here.
Yeah. I'm excited to do a deeper dive because we're really still getting to know each other.
I am as well. And some of you may notice Cam from a reality TV show. So tell me more about that.
All right. So I was on The Bachelorette, the most recent season with Miss Hannah Brown, and I was on the most recent season of The Bachelor in Paradise. So part of Bachelor Nation, as they call it. And to be completely honest, that was not a world that I ever envisioned myself getting in, let alone anything in reality TV. And you can see me there with Hannah. And we talk about these platforms that we're given. And I think that's one thing about the show, and really just any reality TV show that's changed so much over the years, is now social media having such a big part in these contestants' lives. Because when you're on the show, you're vulnerable and you're hopefully being yourself. That was kind of my tagline. ABC always be Cam, which was a complete inside joke, but the way in which it was edited and came across, they made it sound like I was this person who talks in third person all the time. But Cam rarely talks in third person. But I never thought I was going to be in that world, and it just kind of happened by chance. I had a friend nominate me. Most guys don't nominate themselves or audition. It's really outside forces. Okay. Whereas most female contestants are like the first to jump. They're like, let's get to the altar as soon as possible. But being in that world, I knew at some level, some degree, that putting myself out there in front of literally 8 million American audiences on any given Monday night when the show aired, that regardless, when you have that many people watching, there's going to be people who love you and there's going to be people who hate you. And there's literally nothing you can do to control that or to influence that. So with social media now, you basically have this conduit to open up your doors to your personal life, to everybody who wants to come in. The internet trolls, the past contestants, other celebrities, or really just normal people who think that they know who you are based on what they see in television. And I kind of joke with people from time to time, if someone recognizes me, they'll come up to me and they're like, "Are you really that creepy?" And I'm like, first off, rude. And second off, like, what you saw was a projection of me, of one that was edited. And I mean, it's reality television, it's entertainment. So seeing me for what you saw on television versus having a real life human conversation interaction is like meeting Tom Cruise and being disappointed that he's not the same character he was in Top Gun, right? Like I was essentially personified. So, and it's just one of those things that you have to have a very thick skin to deal with the naysayers and receiving public ridicule. And I was telling you earlier, looking at my Instagram, for example, I mean, I've had death threats that have come in through direct messages, people claiming that I'm making up the lymphedema disease, people just really saying hurtful things. And over time, you get a little bit desensitized to it, but I'm a human being, and they tell us, hey, stay out of the comment section, because that's where you can see a lot of hurt in there. But on the flip side, I've received incredible support and really building up the lymphedema community, which I care about more than anything. Being able to help patients in Australia and Italy and Mexico, and then obviously all over the United States. Like, to me, that's using this platform for positivity. And I think we as a society need that more than ever, because that's kind of the paradox about social media. It's a weird environment where negativity and positivity thrive. Absolutely. So, but again, attitude and effort, you as an individual get to decide which one you're going to contribute to. Are you going to be on the negative party, or are you going to be on the positive party? And lately, ever since, doing the show and being an advocate for lymphedema, I'm staying in that lane, that positive lane, and that's the straight and narrow that I want to continue on.
You're absolutely right. You decide whether you want to use social media as a positive influence, or to contribute to all the negativity. And I feel like right now we have enough of that going on. So I love that you're a lymphedema patient and advocate. That's amazing. Tell me, how did you get involved in that?
So advocacy is something that I never really even considered because I was basically running away from my lymphedema disease. I was ashamed of it. But after going on the show, that's when I got a call from the CEO of LEARN, which stands for Lymphatic Education and Research Network. It's a global nonprofit. And we'll talk more about that, how I got into the advocacy role.
I love that. And I can't wait to hear more. I know you're excited as well. So we'll be right back.
The right tax team is key to any successful business. At America's Tax Firm, our goal is to help individuals and businesses of all sizes with accounting solutions and tax strategies that yield profitability, sustainability, and growth. At America's Tax Firm, we have a team of experienced tax consultants and advisors that can help your company optimize business strategies to minimize taxes and reduce liabilities. From preparing and filing your personal or business taxes, or choosing the right legal structure for your business, to resolving complex tax issues with the IRS, America's Tax Firm is your turnkey solution. Take a strong and decisive step and let America's Tax Firm be part of your success.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, retired NASA astronaut, entrepreneur, and proud son of migrant farm workers. Our migrant families do very important work. Many follow the harvest and move frequently throughout the U.S. and thus have many needs. One way to improve your family's future is by participating in the 2020 census. The census only occurs every 10 years, but it affects public funding for clinics, schools, and other essential programs for our communities. Each person must be counted at the address where they live the most during the year. However, if you move frequently, don't worry. Simply fill out your questionnaire where you are living on April 1st, 2020. The information you provide is confidential and is not shared with other government organizations. The future of our families depends on you. So make yourself count before July 31st. For more information, visit the website 2020census.gov.
Our nation is being seriously affected, not only emotionally, but also clinically. Parents or guardians dealing with a teenager in crisis that require transport to an appropriate treatment facility makes that decision even more difficult. My Armor Services Transport is here to help. Their agents are personal protection officers and private investigators, state certified and trained to accommodate firm boundaries and de-escalations, all while recognizing your loved one's sense of individuality and dignity. Most times your loved one will not respond favorably to being placed in a treatment program. Positive and safe transportation assistance becomes critical when violent or defiant behavior to a placement is anticipated. My Armor Services Transport understands this is a difficult time for you and your family. They are committed to transporting your loved one with dignity, respect, securely, and with compassion. Let them assist with this heavy burden. Call today at 1-800-341-0919 and let My Armor Services Transport be the first strong step you take toward resolving this difficult and complicated issue.
Welcome back to Be Better with Susan and Cam. You were just telling us something super interesting. Please continue.
Yeah, so really before I go deep into me becoming an advocate for lymphedema, I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into how traumatic my health got.
Okay.
Kind of the rock bottom, if you will.
Please do.
So when I was living in Austin in 2014, I was getting off work from taking a client out to happy hour. I used to work in advertising, and when I was getting out of my truck, my right knee just randomly locked up on me. And it wasn't like it was one of those weird movements where I thought, oh, maybe I tore my ACL. You know, being a former collegiate athlete, I figured, oh, it could be that. but it was the most excruciating pain I felt my whole life. I was like running a fever, and it almost felt like I had a blood clot, which I'd never had a blood clot before, but I'm like, surely there's something serious going on here. So I had my roommate at the time rush me to the ER there in Austin. And I won't go into all of the details, but basically I had a pretty severe infection in my right leg. And they put me on a PICC line antibiotic in my arm for 6 weeks, and they did an emergency surgery that following Monday to basically drain the knee and take little pieces of bone off the knee to make sure that they cleared out the infection. So basically from the year 2014 to the year 2017, I had 6 of those episodes of infection, which equates to 13 different knee surgeries. And it actually got so bad, you can actually see some of the surgery pictures here. It got to the point where in December of 2017, they actually wanted to do an above-the-knee amputation of my leg, because they said that's the only way we can eradicate this infection. And so I actually had the amputation scheduled for December in 2017. And literally 2 weeks away from getting that amputation procedure, I got a call from a children's hospital in Boston that has all these Harvard Medical School educated doctors call me up and say, hey, we finally had a chance to review your medical records, which I had sent them 9 months prior to getting that phone call. They said, hey, obviously we're a pediatric hospital. You're 27, so we just don't have a lot of spots available for non-pediatric patients, which, I understand. That's just kind of the way it works with children's specialty hospitals. But they said, we do have a spot available for you, but the kicker is it's right before the day before Christmas Eve, and it's snowing like crazy here in Boston. So traveling conditions obviously aren't optimal. But I was like, okay, I'd been to some of the other top medical facilities all across the United States. This will be my last stone to turn before doing something irreversible like an amputation. Yes. So when I went up there, they did a minimally invasive surgery, and they actually identified the root cause. And they basically said, yeah, if you would have gotten that amputation, it wouldn't have fixed your issue, and it probably would have killed you.
Oh my goodness.
So 2 weeks away from having my life pretty drastically changed. And what that did was it really got me kind of a scared straight, if you will, to know that I had to be compliant with all the treatment modalities that is required for a lymphedema patient, because there is no cure. You have to constantly wear compression garments. So like you see, I wear my little leg sleeve that goes all the way up. I wear that every single day, even when it's 100 degrees outside, or when it's really cold. It's not as bad there. But having gone through that and just getting that one-on-one conversation with the physician and signing off on the schedule to get an amputation. I mean, you didn't really have a choice in your situation, but when you came to and knew that you were missing a limb, like you literally feel like, I'm assuming, but you probably feel like you're losing a piece of yourself.
Absolutely.
Your identity, the way in which you perceive your own body, and then you start worrying about what other people are going to think. And I just started spiraling out of control, and I really did kind of hit rock bottom. But when they finally came up with a better treatment protocol that did not involve amputation, that got me to really take everything seriously. And really, I wasn't even public about my lymphedema up until The Bachelorette. When I was on the season most recently, that was the first time I talked about it, obviously on a public forum. I've never been on television before, but it's something that really only my family and close friends knew about. If I was on the dating scene, I wasn't opening with, oh, hey, I'm Cam, I have lymphedema. It's a chronic disease. Have you heard of it? I didn't really do that.
Right.
But knowing that this was my opportunity, not to just bring awareness to lymphedema, but to say, hey, Hannah, that was The Bachelorette. I said, look, like if you're taking this process seriously, and it's going to be you and I at the very end of this journey when the cameras aren't rolling and we're walking down that aisle and we're exchanging wedding vows and we're saying in sickness and in health, like, I need to know that you can handle someone who's had a history of chronic disease, because going from the dynamic of boyfriend and girlfriend to fiancés to then husband and wife and then caretaker, like that's a whole nother layer. And I feel like a lot of young people out there who haven't had any issues with their health, they don't know what it's like to not only be a caretaker or to receive care from other people. And not just the male ego, but I think just the human ego in general. We can be a little prideful and push people away. And I've gotten a lot better of raising my hand and saying, hey, I need some help here. Or if I'm going to a concert, for example, I love music. You know what? Guess what? I'm going to get ADA accommodations, not because like it's a better seat, but it's because I actually physically need it. And that's the demands that my body has. And I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
And I think anybody with any type of illness or disease or malformation, whatever the case may be, it does take time to process it, to accept it, and then to embrace it. See, embracing is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Because that takes you taking an imperfection and seeing it perfectly. Not to get all John Legend on you.
I love it, though. I
Yeah.
love it. I love our conversation, but I want to circle back real quick when
Sure.
you mentioned, okay, so you're on TV and you decide to open up and speak
Yes.
about it. What made you decide to do that?
Well, really because I was taking the process seriously. And I'm like, okay, if you are going to potentially be my wife, like you're going to know all of me. And the other part too on the show is like later on, they tend to have pretty physical group dates. So like on my season, the guys are playing rugby or roller derby or doing these type of, pretty elaborate activities that are pretty physically demanding.
Okay.
And I just physically knew that if I was selected to be on one of those dates, I wouldn't be able to. So I would have much rather be upfront and transparent with her and lay it all on the line and say, hey, this is who I am. I may not be the same strength as some of these young guys with ripped abs who are Instagram models now, but like I have a strength that's internal and
Heck yeah,
a
you do.
love that I can give you that a lot of these guys can't. And she actually received it very well. What the problem is another guy in the house, after I had that conversation with her, that very real, that very vulnerable conversation, another guy pulls her aside and basically tells her, oh, Cam's going to tell you this sob story, this medical story, so you give him a pity rose and keep him around.
Oh my goodness.
And she chose to believe him, and I got sent home that night. So that was literally the first time in my entire life that someone made me feel guilty for having a chronic disease. And I'm not going to lie, I was very upset with the network. I was very upset with the show for the way in which they portrayed me, because it was not only a disservice to me as an individual, but it downplayed the lymphedema community, which we haven't even talked about the numbers. Lymphedema impacts over 10 million Americans alone, which is more than AIDS, Parkinson's, or MLS combined. But because there's not a lot of awareness around it, not a lot of doctors receive that education when they're in medical school, it leaves foot soldiers like myself and other lymphedema advocates to really bring it to the forefront and say, you know what, this isn't a cosmetic condition. This isn't water weight. This is a chronic disease that is oftentimes a souvenir of cancer, for example, because most lymphedema patients are breast cancer survivors, for example, or any other type of cancer where they had chemo or surgical intervention. So to me, that just really upset me that was the way in which they treated something that was very serious in my life, right? And that's what lit the fire. And if you see in one of the slides, it has me with Hannah, but also on the other thing there, you'll see me with Academy Award-winning actress Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates, she was in Waterboy, Titanic.
Oh, wow.
Fried Green Tomatoes. She won Academy Award for Best Actress in Misery, but she actually has lymphedema as well. And I met her at a conference in Dallas, and her and I had dinner that night. And one thing she told me that I'll never forget, she said, Cam, this lymphedema community needs you, and your pain is your strength. So I want you to harness all of this pain that you've had built up for 15 years of battling this disease and all this bitterness and animosity you have towards really America for portraying you the way in which they did. But shout it from the rooftops, because there's a little girl, there's a little boy somewhere in the world, or there's an adult somewhere in this world that will find inspiration from your story, and they'll relate to it, and they'll be a better person because of it. You'll be a better person because of it. So that's really what lit this fire of advocacy and bringing awareness, and really has course corrected and changed my life for the better.
I love that. I love you. Like, I really do. And, I feel like although you didn't move forward on the show, right? But right now, golly, you're leaving an amazing footprint. You're inspiring people from around the world. And although things didn't work out on the show, I feel like right now, this is where you're supposed to be at.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like all of that happened. It got you on TV. You were doing your thing. You were vulnerable. You were open. But at the end of the day, you needed to do that because it led you to exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And things couldn't have worked out better.
And I honestly, I didn't go into reality TV expecting to be famous or expecting to be an Instagram influencer like a lot of them do nowadays because of the prevalence of social media. It's a business. Like, you are your own brand. And I knew that I was actually going there to potentially find my person. But as a byproduct, I don't have any bitterness towards Bachelorette or the franchise at all. I mean, obviously there was some resilience there, but had I not done that show, I would not be where I'm at today with advocacy. I wouldn't have had a chance to give a keynote at Harvard Medical School, to be a fellow TED talker just like you. So it really has opened up a lot of doors. But I think what has been my biggest accomplishment is looking into the eyes of a lymphedema patient, giving him or her a hug and telling him it's going to be okay. I got their back, and they get better.
I love that. I love that. You know, I just have to say that again. Like, you were nominated to be on The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and you're kind of nervous about it. You got on, you're super vulnerable, hoping to find, someone special. Things didn't work out, but now you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Yeah. I'm so proud of you. I really am. Yeah. And tell me, so when you were on TV and you were opening up and being vulnerable, how did that make you feel?
Well, when you're there in the moment and they're like filming it, right? Like, I don't necessarily think that I was processing it. I was like, okay, I can't say this because my parents are going to watch this or strangers are going to watch this. I was just like, it's almost to the point where you get, I think they call it like Stockholm syndrome. Like, you forget about everything, and you're literally, that's where it truly is reality TV. Like, it's not scripted at all. Like, they don't tell us what to say. Yes, there's certain situations that are influenced and set up to evoke certain drama or certain scenarios, but I was just going to go out there and truly be myself. That's why I did, like, jokingly and satirically say ABC always be Cam, because I was going to be myself. And I feel like I was, but I think anytime you are your true self, right, people can perceive it a different way, right? Absolutely. Your expectations and reality don't always align. And that's one of the things that was kind of disheartening for me, is like, I wanted to go in there doing all of the right things, being a chivalrous man and being there for her and not to be bros with all the guys. Like, I'll be friendly to them, but I wasn't there to make friends. Like, a lot of the guys, they all hang out together after the show, which is still bizarre to me. I don't really hang out with any of them from my season. So,
this is such good stuff. We'll be right back, and you will hear more from Cam.
The right tax team is key to any successful business. At America's Tax Firm, our goal is to help individuals and businesses of all sizes with accounting solutions and tax strategies that yield profitability, sustainability, and growth. At America's Tax Firm, we have a team of experienced tax consultants and advisors that can help your company optimize business strategies to minimize taxes and reduce liabilities. From preparing and filing your personal or business taxes, or choosing the right legal structure for your business, to resolving complex tax issues with the IRS, America's Tax Firm is your turnkey solution. Take a strong and decisive step and let America's Tax Firm be part of your success.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, retired NASA astronaut, entrepreneur, and proud son of migrant farm workers. Our migrant families do very important work. Many follow the harvest and move frequently throughout the U.S. and thus have many needs. One way to improve your family's future is by participating in the 2020 census. The census only occurs every 10 years, but it affects public funding for clinics, schools, and other essential programs for our communities. Each person must be counted at the address where they live the most during the year. However, if you move frequently, don't worry. Simply fill out your questionnaire where you are living on April 1st, 2020. The information you provide is confidential and is not shared with other government organizations. The future of our families depends on you. So make yourself count before July 31st. For more information, visit the website 2020census.gov.
Our nation is being seriously affected, not only emotionally, but also clinically. Parents or guardians dealing with a teenager in crisis that require transport to an appropriate treatment facility makes that decision even more difficult. My Armor Services Transport is here to help. Their agents are personal protection officers and private investigators, state certified and trained to accommodate firm boundaries and de-escalations, all while recognizing your loved one's sense of individuality and dignity. Most times your loved one will not respond favorably to being placed in a treatment program. Positive and safe transportation assistance becomes critical when violent or defiant behavior to a placement is anticipated. My Armor Services Transport understands this is a difficult time for you and your family. They are committed to transporting your loved one with dignity, respect, securely, and with compassion. Let them assist with this heavy burden. Call today at 1-800-341-0919 and let My Armor Services Transport be the first strong step you take toward resolving this difficult and complicated issue.
Either of us?
Yeah.
Swear.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm kidding. There's children who ate them.
Hi guys, we're back with Cam. Cam,
Yes.
come on, buddy. I want to hear more.
Okay, so as we were just talking about my first stint in reality TV, I escaped from Alcatraz, and then I went right back in like a month and a half later. So for the viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with the whole Bachelor franchise, there's The Bachelor, where they have the guy who has 30 girls trying to win him over. Then they have The Bachelorette, which is one girl and 30 guys, that was the one I was on. And then they have the spinoff called Bachelor in Paradise,
Ooh.
where it's kind of like Temptation Island, if you will. They have all the past contestants from The Bachelor, Bachelorette, not all of them, but just kind of like fan favorites or controversial characters, if you will. I guess I'm more in that category.
Okay.
Definitely wasn't a fan favorite, but
You're my favorite.
Oh, well, thank you. So we go to this beach in Mexico.
Mexico, okay, I was gonna
and
ask
it's basically like kind of dating musical chairs. So you have a lot more one-on-one time with multiple people, right? So it's not as like cutthroat with The Bachelorette, where I was one of 30 guys trying to compete for one girl, right? So it was almost kind of like dating musical chairs in the sense that the first week there was 12 girls and 10 guys. So the guys were handing out roses, and the following week it flipped. So I didn't think that I was going to put myself on the line a second time after what I went through on The Bachelorette, but it was positioned as redemption, right? And I think anytime you've been put into the public spotlight and you get a less than favorable representation, I think it's natural to either flee from that altogether or to, embrace it and try to get that redemption and try to get that second shot at love. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. Cause it was very shortly after I was on The Bachelorette that we started filming Bachelor in Paradise. It was only like less than a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
So instead of me going back to my previous software sales job in Austin, I kind of took a little brief mental hiatus, got in a lot better physical shape, because in Paradise you're pretty much shirtless the whole time on the beach. So I didn't want to be the one guy with the dad bod, which looking back I probably should have embraced that realness. But I went out there and it was basically same story, new day. Didn't really come across as the most romantic and approachable guy. And, there's little tricks with editing, like the underscore music that's played and cutting and splicing and all the things that really is involved with any reality TV show. And there I was again, kind of the slapstick comedy gesture, if you will, of the kingdom that is Bachelor Nation. And, one of the things, it's interesting, I've seen people who are part of that franchise who are just terrible people who got incredible edits. So America just assumes they're these lovely individuals. And then there's other people who got not the best of edits, but they're out in the world doing amazing things. So I think I fall more into that category.
Okay.
And when I got off the show, I had the opportunity to speak at a couple of different lymphedema conferences. And one in particular, I got to give the keynote at Harvard Medical School.
Amazing.
I know, I would have. Harvard, like it's hard. All Legally
crap.
Blonde
Yeah.
quote for you there. But again, if I never did the show, I would have never had that opportunity. And
I
then
love that.
speaking at that conference is what really make me feel, I felt at home. I felt at home, and I knew that I wanted to make this my career, my profession, not just speaking at conferences, but I wanted to be in the lymphedema community in some capacity. And that's when I got involved with the company that I'm with now. I work for a company called LymphaPress. So I'm a compression therapy consultant. So it's kind of a hybrid role of like part medical device sales, but then also I work with a lot of lymphedema therapists and doctors and helping get their patients the best care that they need, whether it's in clinic, they're in the hospitals, or ultimately in their homes. So going to patients' homes is probably my favorite part of my job. And I'm finally able to do that now slowly. Obviously, we wanted to take extra safety precautions with COVID and social distancing. And a lot of my patients, they do skew a little bit older. So a lot of them do have pre-existing conditions. So if they don't feel comfortable with me coming into their home, then we do a lot of telehealth and consultations over the phone. But one thing I want to show is a picture of me and this little girl. And last summer, I got to volunteer at the first ever summer camp for kids with lymphedema. It's called Camp Watch Me. And they never had that in the United States. Last summer was the first one. So you can see that little girl there. She was about 2.5 years old, and she has severe lymphedema in both of her hands. You can kind of see they're pretty swollen, and that's her mom there standing behind. And being at that summer camp and being surrounded by kids with lymphedema, like every single kid there, that was their first time ever meeting someone else with lymphedema. And I just remember thinking, like, when I was that age, I would have loved to have met someone else with lymphedema, because it almost took me 15 years to find someone else that had lymphedema. And having that community and that support system is so empowering for not only self-acceptance, but, you know, giving that hug, giving that encouragement, that support to someone who's going through the same thing that you are. And that really did solidify my place in the lymphedema community, not only as an advocate and an ambassador, but was really the segue into now what I do professionally, getting to help lymphedema patients every single day. And if you would have told me I would be doing what I'm doing now 2-3 years ago, I would have never thought that was possible. But I wish I had a time machine, wish I could have been doing this 10 years ago, because it's really a perfect, it's a sweet spot. And there's, you know, that old saying, if you find something you love doing, you never work another day in your life. And that's, I know it's a little bit cliche, because don't get me wrong, my work is hard. I work pretty long hours. I'm actually about to see a patient after this when we wrap up.
You are.
But at the end of the day, when you realize you're helping another human being, there's nothing more gratifying. Like, put the money aside, put the cool traveling aside, but helping another human being, like, to me, one quote that one of my mentors told me, she said, the meaning of life, or the purpose of life is to find your gift, but the meaning of life is giving that gift away to others. And so I've found my gift, and I'm doing my best to give it away as much as I can every single day. And to me, there's no more gratification that any reality TV show could have brought me than what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. And once again, I have to circle back. I love, you know, your journey, right? You go on the show, things didn't work out. It brought you to this moment right now, and you're inspiring the world. You're making such an impact. I mean, there's nothing they could have done for you that could have been more gratifying and more honorable than what you're doing right now. It's amazing.
And that actually is a good little segue here too, because
guys.
They never aired me talking about lymphedema on The Bachelorette. When I did have several conversations, they like edited it out.
Why?
Which I just thought was kind of a slap in the face. So when we had the reunion for Bachelor in Paradise, I told the producers, said, "Look, I'm gonna make a shirt that says I have lymphedema. Google it, so you guys can't edit that." And they said, "Yeah, sure, fine." I show up for the reunion, and we're in front of a live studio audience. They're taping it, and they blur it out like it's some sort of curse word. Because, it says Google. Well, guess what? Google's in Webster's dictionary now. You don't have to copyright that. So this is my way of just saying, you know what? I have lymphedema. Google it, because there needs to be more awareness. And, you know, I'm not hiding behind it anymore. It's something that I talk about literally every single day. And I don't grow tired talking about it, because it is so fascinating that I get to educate doctors, ones who've been practicing for 20 plus years, and then doctors who are fresh out of medical school, and then patients who've been living with this condition some 30 years, longer, almost as long as I've been alive. So again, embracing that thing that makes us different is what has been my nirvana, my cathartic experience.
that.
And I was telling you, I still have low times, right? I would be lying if I said that I don't still get hurt when I get these hateful things said about me on social media. I'm trying to filter those out, and over time I am getting a little bit more desensitized to it. And we talked about earlier, there's some therapy options out there that I'm going to be trying. EMDR, don't ask me to tell you exactly off the top of my head what that acronym stands for again, but it's really just a unique way of processing trauma. And I think anybody who's going through anything, even if it's not a physical thing, but just emotional trauma,
Absolutely.
facing that and reprocessing it and just moving on is really the only way you're going to find inner peace and happiness, in my opinion. Maybe a happiness coach can validate that or lend some more on that topic, but that's what I'm looking forward to doing in my own life, because I'm not perfect and I do have low days, like
Absolutely.
no doubt.
We all do. I do as well. There are some days that are harder than others, but you're right. Earlier you mentioned embracing it, right? And that took a lot of time for me to embrace my physical scar. It took, such a long time because I was anti-vulnerable. I wasn't ready to speak about my emotions. I didn't want people to know how I was feeling. I was actually self-medicating and doing things like that so I wouldn't have to face my reality. But once I was able to accept what has happened to me, I learned to make the best of my situation. And embracing it was a tough one. But once I'm able to embrace myself and say, hey, this is me, and things are going to be different. Life is going to be different, but I need to find ways to make it work. And of course, just being able to have a better mindset instead of being so bitter and being so angry. But I love that you're such an advocate for lymphedema. I'm sorry. Okay. We'll be right back, guys. I'm so sorry. Oh, my goodness. How are you feeling?
Hello, I'm Francisco Sanchez, Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for Harris County. April 1st is National Census Day, and it has never been easier to respond on your own, whether online, over the phone, or by mail, all while maintaining social distance and without having to meet a census taker. By being counted in the 2020 census, you will help determine funding for emergency services that are critical to helping us respond to COVID-19 and other disasters like flooding and hurricanes. We all count, and we all get to shape our future by participating in the 2020 census. You have until August 14th to participate, but don't wait. Do it today. Visit 2020census.gov for more information.
Si usted es agente de bienes raíces y está buscando una compañía confiable para limpieza para mantener sus casas de venta o renta impecables, Sierra Cleaning Services es su solución. Con más de 15 años de experiencia, Sierra Cleaning Services ha sido la compañía preferida por los agentes de bienes raíces en Houston, Katy, Cinco Ranch, Cypress y Woodlands. Sierra Cleaning Services ofrece limpieza residencial, comercial y de oficinas, remoción de escombros durante todas las fases de proyectos de construcción, aseo de casas y oficinas antes y después de ser habitadas. Llame a Alfredo Sierra y permita que Sierra Cleaning Services sea su aliado en su proyecto de limpieza.
I couldn't be happier with having Cam in the studio with me today. Cam, thank you so much. Your story is so inspiring, and I seriously love you. I do. So we were speaking earlier about lymphedema and your advocacy. So tell me more about it, please.
Yes. So what I do every day, I try to utilize my social media platform too, because I was kind of joking earlier that a lot of the contestants on reality TV shows just end up being influencers, selling consumer items and, accessories and clothings and all that kind of stuff, which, I get it. That's a business for them. That's their livelihood, like more power to them. But I took a completely different route, and I would much rather have 20,000 followers of lymphedema patients and loved ones, and they're actually getting quality content, that they're learning something or they're being inspired or uplifted, versus feeding consumerism. And to me, I think that's just the beauty of social media in general, is that we get to have these types of conversations with people from all over the world, right? Like I was telling you earlier in the conversation, I've talked to patients who live in Australia, in Italy, Iran. Like it's insane. And I would have never had that opportunity or the notoriety to do so had I not been involved with my lymphedema advocacy. And really, it just goes for anybody, right? You have the ability to evoke positive change when you face the adversity and the things that make you unique, and you embrace it, right? Embracing it is where advocacy comes into place, because advocacy without action, without those inputs, right? It's just an aspiration, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So advocacy does take work. It takes time. Absolutely. It takes facing naysayers, because there's people who still will come at me, and people will question whether or not I actually have lymphedema, which I actually take that as a compliment, because that means I'm doing my part to be very compliant in managing the symptoms. I don't have, elephantitis or the severe lymphedema where it's extremely noticeable. But had I not established that work ethic at age 11, I would very easily be there today. That's just the progressive nature of the disease. So I do try to serve as that inspiration anytime I go into clinic or anytime I go and see a patient. I say, hey, look, I have lymphedema too. And, it is manageable, but you have to be disciplined. I give them a little bit of tough love, like a coach would, I love that. And I think that's a fine, it's a delicate balance, right? Because you don't want to scare somebody, but you want to also give them some positivity. So one just quick example of one of my favorite patient stories, she had breast cancer and she's a widower. And when I went to her house to get her set up with the compression pump that I represent, she had pretty substantial swelling in her entire left arm. And we'll just call her Miss Jones for the sake of this. Okay. I'll say, hey, Miss Jones, what's your goal for treatment? Because I'm a very firm believer in goal setting, because for most lymphedema patients, when you're given that diagnosis, they give you this long laundry list of activities and things you should avoid. Avoid bug bites, avoid scraping your knees, all of these things that just makes you feel like, okay, do I just need to live in a bubble, right? It's not realistic, especially living in Houston when those mosquitoes are terrible. You can't avoid bug bites. I don't care if you douse yourself in off. They're going to find a way to get you.
They'll find you.
They'll find you. So Mrs. Smith, I said, what's your goal for treatment? She said, well, though my husband's been passed for many years now, I haven't been able to wear my wedding band in so long because my arm and my fingers are so swollen. And I said, you know what? I can't make you any promises, but I can promise you that if you are compliant and you're consistent, you do stand a fighting chance. Literally 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from Mrs. Smith, and she was able to wear her wedding band. And to me, that just uplifted my entire week, because again, it humanizes what I do. I think there's a stigma with anybody who's in the medical device sales or consulting role, that you're just in it for the money. But for me, behind every single case that opens or every single order that comes across my plate, I don't view it as a commodity. I view that as a human being, as an opportunity to help a human being, to help a patient just like me. So that's what makes it kind of double gratifying. And hearing patient testimonies like that and giving them their quality of life back, to me, there's no better gift you can give somebody than their quality of life back. And that's what I get to do every day. You're a happiness coach. You get to help people find happiness and harness that happiness. I get to help people find their quality of life back, which, the byproduct of that is happiness.
There you go. And that feeling is priceless.
It is.
I'm telling you, the world needs you, and you're doing exactly what you're meant to do. It's your purpose. It's your passion. What are you working on right now?
So right now, no specific project per se. I'm really just trying to build my territory here in Houston. I've only been in my role for about 7 months now. Okay. And so I'm really just forming all these relationships with all these different hospital systems in Houston and some surrounding cities, with different physicians, different clinics, different therapists, and then obviously the patients themselves. But I encourage anybody, if you have lymphedema or you have a loved one that has lymphedema, or just somebody or if you just have questions in general, I'm an open book, so you guys can reach out to me on my Instagram. That's Camron Ayala. That's CAMRON. AYALA. And right there, if you shoot me a direct message, I'm more than happy to answer any of those questions as they may arise, or just hopefully give you some inspiration, because I get inspired every day just from the resilience from patients that I see, whether it's a 2-year-old little girl with severely swollen hands, or it's an 82-year-old war veteran who is an amputation and he's still hobbling along and loving his life.
And thank you so much. I was telling you earlier, actually, I wasn't too familiar with lymphedema, and now I am. I'm super aware of what it is, and you've really helped me see things in a different perspective. So I really appreciate that. I have to ask you, through this journey of yours and going through lymphedema, experiencing that and living with it, how has that made you better?
Well, what I've learned, coincidentally, my mind always goes, I'm a quote guy. Like, I love song lyrics and movie quotes and just inspirational quotes, but I would never thought that I would be quoting Lil Wayne, the rapper. But one of his quotes, which it's so like vague and ambiguous, but it really does kind of personify what my lymphedema journey is. And it's, pain is temporary, love is necessary. So, and that's really what my lymphedema journey has taught me, is though I deal with pain almost on a daily basis, I know that pain is temporary, but love and compassion for others and gratitude, and again, that attitude and effort and that positivity is what overpowers that pain. Our fellow TED Talker, Ray Lewis, who's the former NFL football player, in his TED Talk, he talked about how there's two sides of pain. There's the physical part, and then there's the glory, right? You got to go through the pain to get the glory. And so now I feel like I'm in that sweet spot. I'm living the glory, and pain happens. That's inevitable with life. But I think now we have tools and mechanisms to power through that, to get to that happiness, to get to that glory that is pain. So again, if there's any listeners or viewers out there who just wants to know more about lymphedema in general, or if you have a health condition, I always open door here. If anyone wants to talk about their thing and needs ways to cope with that, I think having community and just having a support system is so important, regardless of what you're going through in life.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that you also said, you're at your sweet spot. And I see that. I see, the impact you're making. I'm hearing it. And I absolutely love your story. I couldn't be more grateful that you're here with me. So what else would you like to share about your experience, or any advice you'd like to give to people that are dealing with pain, or maybe having signs of lymphedema, or nervous about potentially going to the doctor to see if they have it or anything like that?
So really, with anything with health, early detection and intervention is key, right? Because when you're dealing with something like lymphedema that is progressive in nature, meaning it gets worse over time if it is left unmanaged, if you start noticing any tingling sensations or chronic swelling that you're feeling in your feet, your ankles, your upper extremity, and especially if you're a breast cancer, really any type of cancer survivor, or if you've had any type of trauma, whether it's a car accident or any surgical intervention, and you're starting to feel this chronic swelling, go see a specialist. Reach out to me, especially if you're in the Houston area. I know over 85 Houston area alone lymphedema specialists I can get you in contact with. So it's a very tight niche community, and there's definitely a large patient population out there. They just don't know. So as I will conclude with, my new favorite saying is a little head nod to Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. He said, "Just keep living," L-I-V-I-N, but I say, "Just keep lymphing." Got the little tattoo there.
Oh, let me see. I love that.
Just keep lymphing.
Oh, my goodness. You know what? Thank you so much for raising awareness. I am just extremely grateful for the knowledge, for you being here, for you being such a strong advocate, for your compassion, for everything that you're doing, and you're making a huge impact in people's lives. I couldn't be more proud of you. Thank you so much, friend.
Ditto to you, and thank you, my friend.
Thank
I hope
you.
we can have some future conversations like
and
this.
some more brownies.
And
Thank
some
you
more
for making
brownies.
those homemade brownies.
Legal brownies, ladies and gentlemen. Legal brownies.
You're amazing. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it.
Okay.